Hi there. It's Patriot Day, and there's a lot of posts out there on social media asking, "Where were you on September 11th, 2001?" The short answer for me was Tallahassee, Florida. The much longer answer, I was a graduate student at Florida State University. I was working in the business office of the athletics department. We had a radio in our office, and normally it was just kind of background noise. That morning, the music stopped. Newscasts took over. At first, it was kind of hard to understand what they were reporting. And after a few minutes, it became clear to me that planes had crashed into the World Trade Center. Then the reports were about the Pentagon also being involved. Like many Americans out there, many people around the world, I had a lot of questions. How did this happen? At first, I thought, oh, this has to be some kind of accident. 3 planes, though? It became apparent this wasn't a mistake. Who would do something like this? And why? I tried to go online, but the internet crashed as millions of us were trying to access news websites. One of my friends, Jeff Foster, he worked in the baseball office upstairs. He came down and said, "Hey, we've got TV upstairs. You need to come see what's going on." I still remember the horrific pictures that were on the screen. Flames and smoke pouring out of the World Trade Center buildings. Watching people run away. Watching firefighters and police officers running in. It was gut-wrenching. Soon, businesses began to close and send people home. Many real high-profile buildings and organizations were afraid of being attacked. Florida State University was not different. Faculty began canceling classes. After an hour or so, administration strongly suggested faculty cancel classes. My husband Jim was also a graduate student at Florida State University. He had a finance class he had to teach that morning. I headed back downstairs to my office to call him at home. I asked him if he had been watching TV, and he said no. He was too busy trying to get ready for class. I told him, "You might want to call and find out if your classes are canceled." And he asked, "Well, why would I do that?" Told him the World Trade Center and the Pentagon had both been attacked. Planes had flown into all 3 buildings. Told him, "Turn on the TV, take a look. Just watch for a few minutes, see what happened." He hung up the phone. He started to grab his books and backpack, and he turned on the TV, and he saw a building on fire. But he didn't believe it was the World Trade Center. After all, the World Trade Center had 2 buildings, not 1. He only saw 1 on fire. What he didn't realize was that the first tower had already collapsed. He turned off the TV and then started driving to campus. After a few minutes, he realized there were no tunes on the radio, just a bunch of talk and news. It didn't matter what channel he turned on. When he got to campus, parking was super easy, and that is highly unusual at a college campus. The campus itself was very quiet, to say the least. He went into the business building where his classes were, and he noticed there weren't very many people in there. He made his way up to the offices and saw the secretaries, and they wanted to know, "Why are you here? Classes are canceled." That's when he realized what was actually happening. While he was doing all of that, I went back upstairs to the baseball offices. And within seconds of walking up there, I saw the second tower collapse. My knees buckled, and I felt sick to my stomach. All of those innocent lives were gone. Why? This just didn't make any sense. Then there was a report of a plane crashing in farmland in southwestern Pennsylvania, not that far from where I am now. Was that part of the plan too? After watching more news coverage, I went back downstairs to my office, and I was just numb, like a lot of people were. My phone rang, and it was Jim. He was there at the business building, and they told him to go home. We decided to meet at the YWCA, where our daughter Katie was in daycare. I told my boss I was headed home for the day, and he told me they were trying to clear everybody out of the stadium area where our offices were located. The administration was concerned that it might be a big target. The drive to daycare and then to home that day was surreal, to say the least. For the middle of the morning, there was no traffic in downtown Tallahassee. Normally busy streets were deserted. As I drove past the Capitol building, it was surrounded by police cars. Jim and I got to the Y right around the same time and picked up Katie. She wasn't the last one there, but they were very happy to see us. Other parents were on their way to pick up their children too. The staff at the Y had been listening to the radio and watching TV all morning. They were just as concerned as everybody else. The superintendent of Leon County Schools had decided to keep all of the students they had in school that day. He thought it was a safer place for them. The schools were locked down. Students would be dismissed at normal time. So our son Jeffrey would be home later that afternoon. When we got home, we turned on the TV and watched nonstop for hours. I vividly remember the carnage. There was plenty of speculation at that point of who had committed these atrocities and why. After Jeffrey got home, we found out that the middle school teachers had turned on the TVs and they were in all the classrooms so that the students could see what was going on. They had lots of questions too. The one that we all kept asking, though, was why? Why would someone do this? That evening, President Bush took to the airwaves to try and answer our questions. We all learned about Al-Qaeda. We learned about a coordinated assault on our country. We realized our country was now different than it was less than 24 hours ago. And it has never been the same since. Over the next several days, we learned about the evil that was out there. We learned about people who wanted to destroy our country and destroy our way of life. We also learned about the good that was out there. We saw pictures of people helping other people. The Red Cross received more blood donations than they could use. Volunteers descended onto New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with the rescue efforts and the recovery efforts. Members of Congress joined on the steps of the Capitol building, hand in hand, to sing God Bless America. It's been 23 years since that all happened. And I still wonder why. Our country has truly changed, and so has the rest of the world. Terrorists continue to attack people in other countries. Evil is still out there, and so is good. We must never forget what happened on September 11th, 2001. We must never forget the brave people who ran into those burning buildings. We must never forget the passengers on Flight 93 who took over that plane and stop the terrorists from reaching Washington, D.C. We must never forget the innocent lives lost that day. If we do, evil wins.